Okay, here we go. Another 5-minute rant about how bloody awful the police are in Tenerife. I'm not going to say in the Canary Islands. I know Gran Canaria pretty well, and I don't think it's like Tenerife. I don't know Tenerife as well. Been there a few times, but this was a real eye-opener for me. Just how incredibly inept or corrupt, you pick whichever one you think is more appropriate, the police are on Tenerife. I want to address the issue of the dogs. First things first, I want to address this issue that the J. Slater case has not been solved. I think it has been solved. I think it's been solved, or would have been solved, if we could have a means of communicating with the dogs involved. I think the dogs pretty much know what happened, and I think the dogs know certainly what didn't happen, and if only they could talk to each other and to us, I think the dogs have a pretty clear picture of what was going on in this situation. I want to talk about the three different types of dogs, or the three different groups of dogs that were involved, and again, I want to mention the things, some of the obvious things that just didn't happen in this case. Let's start with group of dogs number one, the Guardia Civil dogs. I don't recall the Guardia Civil dogs actually doing anything. In my mind today, when I was trying to go through everything I'd seen about the investigative part of this case, the Guardia Civil dogs, I do not remember doing anything. I don't remember any footage of their dogs actually sniffing, following, and leading. Take your mind back to days 1 and 2, the important days of finding out where Jay was, where he went, where he came from. Let's take the rental car. I don't remember scenes of any dog sniffing around a rental car, going in a rental car, anything like that. In fact, I think the rental car went back to the airport with Ayub, a few hours after he had his chat. We can't call it an interview, his chat with the Guardia Civil. So the dogs that were involved on day 1, as far as I know, were never allowed to investigate the rental car. Airbnb. I do remember scenes of some of the Guardia Civil and their dogs outside the Airbnb. I mean, maybe I'm imagining it, but I seem to remember the dogs were kind of all excited and they were like pulling to get in there. I don't remember them ever going in there. I don't remember them coming out of there. I don't remember them pulling the Guardia Civil up the hill to follow the track. I don't remember any of that. I don't think they went in there. I have a vague memory of Lucy. Whatever you say about Lucy, I think she said something was true. I have a vague memory of her when she was going through a catalogue of things she thought the Guardia Civil and the Tenerife police had failed at. She was saying something like, and they never gave the dogs anything to sniff. The dogs were never following a trail. I think she's right on that. I just don't remember these dogs actually following a scent anywhere. And then, remember, the police went down to Los Cristianos, and I think they went into the apartment where Jay was staying. Again, I don't recall any footage. I don't recall any description. I don't recall anyone saying they brought the dogs had a good sniff around, and the dogs started leading them down to the beach. No, I've got a feeling they didn't take any dogs with them. So, big complaint number 1 with the Guardia Civil, it looks like you didn't use your dogs. I know in all the photo ops you're standing with your dogs, but I don't recall your dogs doing anything. That was my recollection. So again, there's a big red flag there that whoever was in charge basically said, we don't need the dogs, or let the dogs do what they want to do. I don't know. There didn't seem to be a team effort there using the dogs. Sorry, moving on to group number 2. Remember this episode about the Madrid dogs? This big red flag too. They brought some dogs in, I don't know, after a week or 2 from Madrid. These were specialized, long or vast area searching dogs. Their speciality was to cover more ground than normal search dogs. Does this ring a bell? But that made no sense, because where was Jay's body found? Apparently in a ravine about a mile away, half an hour walk away from the epicenter of the search, where the phone pinged. So it was close. So why were these Madrid dogs called in? when they hadn't obviously searched every inch of that area. I can only imagine the captain of the Madrid team arriving and saying, right, okay, we got our dogs, we'll do the long distance search. You have searched every inch around this area, right? And Cipriano Martin, you know, the Guardia Civil guy in Tenerife says, oh, well, no, we haven't searched every inch. I mean, obviously we didn't go down the ravines or anywhere difficult. And I'm guessing the captain of the Madrid team was like, well, what the hell are we doing here? If you haven't searched every inch of the immediate area, you don't need us yet. This doesn't make any sense. The only thing that makes sense, again, is this performance. Like, look at us, we're bringing in an extra team of specialists to help this search. But it made no sense. If you haven't searched every inch of the immediate area, these dogs aren't going to help you. So again, I don't recall seeing these Madrid dogs. I heard they came in. I don't recall seeing them doing any searching. And then the last group of dogs were the Dutch team that I think Debbie organized to come over. And they never got into action. I want to talk about that because it was like the day after they arrived, Jay was found. You know, was found. Let's do it like that. Was found. Those dogs, we never got to see them in action. But I do remember the Dutch team captain again saying, we will find the body. If the body's been out there a month, we're going to find it, right? Obviously. I remember some people saying they're not going to be able to follow a trail. Well, I looked this up. Dogs can follow a trail after about a month. Depends on the conditions. So it turns out Tenerife is actually ideal conditions for that scent to remain. It's not well, it can be windy there, but it's not rainy. So it is quite possible that had that Dutch team started with their best dogs at the Airbnb, Jay's scent, if he ever went up that hill, would still be there. But we never found out because all I heard was the Dutch dogs had started searching. They were on a trail. They had to rest. They had some water, and then it was announced that Jay had been found. Bloody amazing, eh? Now here is my thought on the Dutch team. So assuming Jay had been in that ravine for 1 month, the fear surely among the Guardia Civil was the Dutch team were going to take like 3 hours to go straight there and find him. And then obviously the world's going to say, what a bloody useless lot the Guardia Civil were. They took 1 month, they couldn't find it. The Dutch team took 3 hours. That, I think, is the explanation of how and why Jay was suddenly found. But let's reverse it. Let's reverse it. Let's say Jay's body was never in that ravine, or he'd been, you know, put there 24 hours before so he could be found. That too is a problem. Because if his body wasn't there, if Jay wasn't there, presumably this Dutch team, having promised Debbie, yeah, we'll find him, they would have spent God knows how long in that area, and the Dutch team would have said, I'm sorry, we've got the best dogs in the world. There is no corpse here. There is no body here. Jay has never been here. That too would have been the ultimate embarrassment for the Guardia Civil. So, what am I saying here? I'm saying this story of the 3 dog teams, they're all 3 red flags to me. And my frustration is, well, I'm not a policeman. I've worked with police as a translator and interpreter. I've worked alongside them. I know a little bit about it. I'm 100% sure this case was actually fairly straightforward. If we're talking about finding where Jay had come from, where he went to, and what happened to him. But it all went wrong in that first 24 hours, that first 48 hours, when the car should have been sniffed out, the Airbnb should have been sniffed out. We all know the forensic team entered on day 16. That's another red flag. But focusing on the dogs, it looks like only the Dutch dogs, the private group, if you like, were used or going to be used correctly. Everything the Guardia Civil touched in dog world was a failure. It seemed to be like a deliberate failure. Anyway, that's my rant about how the dogs were misused. But the dogs, if they could communicate with each other, would know. They could tell us what happened. I'm sure they could. Those Guardia Civil dogs are outside the Airbnb. I remember seeing them. They could tell us. I'm sure they could tell us now if Jay had been in there. But it didn't happen. As far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, anyone remember these dogs going in and having a good sniff of the couch and a good sniff of the blanket and then running up the hill? I don't remember it. But I'm sure those dogs, if they could tell us if Jay had been there, when, how long, etc., etc. Okay, that's enough of me ranting. I'm going to rant tomorrow about another aspect that has really ticked me off, and that's these 2 characters that insisted on giving an interview on TV with their back to us. You know who I mean, Lucy and Ophelia. But I've got a theory or 2 about that too, because I thought, a bit like not using the dogs correctly, I thought that was bloody ridiculous.